Hi, I'm Patty McGarrahan with the Mind's Eye Show, and I'm here today with Ann Porto, and we're going to be discussing psychic detective work and mediumship. I thank you for coming today, Ann.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Tell us a little bit about how you started getting your mediumship, or realizing you had mediumship.
Okay, so growing up in New York with an Italian-American family, my aunts we used to always call them witches, because things would happen around them, like, for no reason at all, unpredictable things, and I never paid attention to it. I just thought that was what happens in every family. But later on in life, I had an apparition occur to me. Wasn't a psychotic event. It was a religious experience.
Okay.
And I had this happen while I was sleeping in my bedroom with, I used to share a bedroom with my sister. And she was sound asleep, and this bright, bright orb flew down and floated down into the room, and I looked at my sister and I said, how could she be sleeping when this is so bright? It was nothing like you would see in regular life. And so out of the orb appeared the child Jesus, when Jesus was a baby. And I looked at that, and I looked in the eyes, and there was no words spoken, but I felt a sense of peace, and I wasn't afraid. And it stayed for a very short time, and then it floated back out. And after that, I didn't know how to make sense of that, so I just kind of pushed that aside too, until later on in life, when I started working in the field of clinical psychology. I met some great teachers who gave me instruction in Tibetan Buddhist healing methods, and also death and dying work that I since have been practicing with. There's a Buddhist practice called POA, where you utilize mantras and breathing exercises, and you work on your consciousness rising up, very similar in some ways to Kundalini practices and meditational practices that people are becoming very familiar with the chakras and all of that. But this is learning to use your energy to move your consciousness up through the fontanelle aperture at the top of the head at the time of death, so that you would have a more auspicious death. And so that, plus meditating constantly over the years, I think brought me to mediumship, because it opened up, I would say, the opportunities, the portals for downloading information from spirit. And I continue to believe it was through my meditation practice and prayer, and just being with the right teachers, and you being one of them.
Thank you, thank you.
So when I heard about your Mind's Eye business in Warwick, I was excited, because you were one of the few people in Rhode Island that has been teaching and holding groups in psychic detective work, which I am very interested in.
And you're fabulous at, too, may I say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, because I had a partner in crime with the psychic detective work. I did it on my own for a while. I had some people from the shop. We'd go over cases a little bit in a back room. And then I had a girl that was actually a detective that got hurt, and then ended up, she saw the body come out of the person. It was a car accident, and a heroin addict got in a car accident, hit the car full of detectives, left the body. And when that happened, and she saw that, she got very intrigued by that. And of course, her main interest was psychic detective, so we joked. I was the armchair detective and the medium, and she was the armchair medium and the detective. So at first I was doing it on my own. I lucked out where I had a client that's brother was chief of police in New Hampshire, so I got to do a lot of it through him. He had a couple of cases that he needed closed so he could retire, and we were able to get the answers that he needed, which was just absolutely wonderful. And that kind of stuff. So I got intrigued, and then the detective that started working with me, we started doing some famous cases that were around, and it was pretty cool. We found 2 bodies, not the one we wanted, but from the same killer. We found 2 bodies.
Wow.
It's just hard to get the police to help you.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Do you want to say more about that, because it is kind of still looked upon as not authentic in some ways, because the police often say they want factual information, but until you start proving yourself to them.
Absolutely. What I had is the 3 chiefs of police that sometimes went on conference calls with me, because in New Hampshire, every corner there is another police station, because they do small areas over there, and they're small police stations. And I worked with one primarily, but other 2 were sometimes called in when there were cases that involved their districts as well. And I did really well with them. He tested me out actually on the phone one day, and then got my opinion on a couple of things, and then gave me 3 cases. And one of the cases, sometimes it's the silliest things that we get that help them with the case. And I kept getting cousin of cousin, but couldn't figure out. I thought it was the woman that died's cousin of a cousin type of thing. And it turned out, I finally got information that it was a cousin of a cousin was actually tied up and forced to watch while 2 other cousins killed.
Wow.
And it was a case that was open from 1986. And I told him what I got, and I said about the gentleman being tied up and the cousins, and they had a drug addict come in off the street when they had a reward for this case, and the drug addict said his 2 cousins tied him up and made him watch, and they thought he was just looking for the money and making up a story. They refound him, and they got the information. One of the ones, the secondary killer, had already passed away, but the ex-wife of the other one, he's hiding out in North Carolina, and he doesn't have, like, nothing's on the books. He does everything, so they don't even know for sure if he's alive or not, but there's an extradition order if he ever comes through, but they know who exactly did it now. So he felt at peace. So during COVID, he did retire. But it's very hard to get them to work. And when I was doing the more current case, to me, parents not having closure to the death of a child and having the body, where Sylvia, one that I did, and another kid that we found, I told them, we actually used the pendulum on a map to get the idea where to go. I had gotten, for one of them, I got, where you're looking, you need to go towards Vermont, 900 feet on the left, and there's a deserted barn, and he slid down the wall of the barn, and that's where they found the body. So when you get this information, it's so incredible. And then the state troopers were very difficult to deal with, and the cadaver dog. So I actually was kind of fresh, and I ordered the cadaver dog and said that the guy wanted it. He wanted to choke me. But part of the problem is they're not really being as bad as you think. It's because when it goes into the court system, if anything's said about a psychic or a medium, it gets thrown out. So, but my idea is, who cares? Get the body for the poor parents to have closure.
But for people who don't know, I mean, there are groups like Patty's in Rhode Island. Patty has a business in Warwick that allows those of us who really want to practice and study this to come together. And if anybody's watching that has a family member where there's no closure because of a homicide case or or an abduction that you don't know whether or not the person is alive, or even a pet who has been stolen.
I can't do the pets though because I cry for days if they're dead.
Well,
so I'm a little tough on the pets.
That's why we have
you
a
have
group.
you, yeah, yes.
And so sometimes it's not good for one person, but it's good for another person. So, but the main reason I think we would agree that, you and I would agree that we do this is just to help people have some closure.
Right, and I had to tell the state troopers up there, I said, we pay for our own hotel room to stay up when we were doing the New Hampshire ones. We pay for everything. We give you the information. We're not looking for credit.
Right.
I just want the families to have closure.
Peace.
And I saw her, it's a famous case, Maura Williams, and I saw her in the woods, and she motioned to me, and it was, she said she was an eighth of a mile in over this brook, the Appalachian Trail, and I finally got them to come out there with the cadaver dog. And the cadaver dog, I can make good dogs misbehave. The cadaver dog wasn't behaving because it wanted to play with me. So we had to tell him he could play with me if he went off. And I heard them found one, found two. And so all of a sudden, the other state trooper wants all the information I have now.
Yeah.
And they were having troubles finding them because it was the New York-Vermont line. So this guy was crossing the border back and forth doing stuff. And I couldn't get them to go. Once they found two, they called the dig crew, told us they didn't really find them, that was just a mix-up. And then they called the dig crew to come and dig up the bodies in front of us, so we knew they found them. And then they told us to go away, which I have no problems with the go away part. But I told you, an eighth of a mile. They said we were 600 feet, and I guess it's 900 for an eighth or whatever it was. They were about 300 feet off away from finding this girl's body. So I think it's so funny that we're doing this today, because I am on the Facebook page for her, and somebody was talking about calling in mediums, because the family has objected to it. They had a famous medium, and I know what she got, and I know why she got it, because we hung up there and we've done a lot of research ourselves. She got some information, and she did get a bad guy, but he liked more pedophile stuff, so it wasn't her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he had a place under his bathroom that he was hiding them, and he was doing creepy things. But the parents got so disappointed, the father and the daughter got so disappointed because they did not find her, that they got kind of anti-psychics and stuff. So I had written to them very anonymously and said, just get somebody with a cadaver dog to check. And got no response, so I just let it go. So today on there, they were asking about medium's help. So I told them what I found and what it was, and all of a sudden it stirred up a real interest, so I'm hoping maybe they can get there. The father's in his 80s. The daughter that was helping on this has now passed away from health issues. So this poor man has buried his wife, his other daughter. I think he might have a son, I'm not sure. And the other daughter's missing. And I would just like him to have closure.
Yeah.
I just like him to have closure so badly.
So when we get together at Patty's office, we sit usually in a circle, and we work on cases, and we write down the information that we're getting. Each person writes their own or shares their own information that we're getting. And the last time I was with your group, we called on this local case. I won't mention any names.
I try to do 2 or 3 local cases every time we meet.
Right. And we called on this one particular female, and she did not come through, but a relative of hers came through. I think it was either a grandmother or an elderly aunt.
I'm almost sure it was a grandmother, yeah. So
we did feel like there was still a release of her going into the light, which the grandmother sort of reached out her hand towards her, and someone in the group felt that she was kind of still in like a limbo area of transition, like she wasn't ready yet to go into the light, and she wasn't quite here either. So she was somewhere in between, and by us calling for help, she did actually get some relief that evening at your office with those people.
I felt it so much, and I have gotten a few messages from her now that she's crossed over, and I do think some more of the information that we got was very correct. And the other local case, another family that we knew in Rhode Island, we did pass on that information to them. They had the body, so it wasn't like missing bodies and stuff like that with that one. But he came through with very specific information, and she gave it to the family, and it made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense to them.
Oh,
so
good.
sometimes this stuff is just so helpful.
And you never know,
in
like you
healing.
said before, what little detail might make the difference. It could break a case that's been cold for years and years, and that's what we hope for.
And I'm finding relatives of police and law enforcement are letting me know sometimes that there's more and more that are caring about it. It's done very under the table, but those of us that do it, we are not looking for the pat on the back. We're looking for the closure for the family.
We're not even doing it for the money, because
we don't get paid.
We do it because we care. And it is a privilege and an honor to do this work.
And I love it because it's got my students opening up to their mediumship 10 times more.
Yes.
And they're absolutely amazed at some of the stuff that they get. And it's just a really, really beautiful thing. So
the one case that I had that was in my sleep, actually, was that I put it out to the universe that if I meant to do this work, please give me a sign. And a few nights later, I get a name. And it was the kind of a name, and I don't want to share it publicly, but it was the kind of a name you could spell it in different ways. And I woke up that morning and I said, oh, what is this? So I wrote down the name, but life is busy and crazy, so I didn't do this for a number of nights. And when I went back into my dream state, I said, who is this name from? And I get an answer. And I wrote down the information, and I got up from my bed and I went to Google, and I wrote the name down on Google, and the person was a cold case in Peoria, Illinois. I have never been to Peoria, Illinois. I didn't know anything about this person, but turns out she was, it's been a dead case for many, many years. And the whole thing that she came through, I said, well, now what do I do with this information? So Jean Mandeville, who was on your show here, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, she was on recently,
Jean Mandeville is a teacher of mine, mediumship
teacher. And I actually
teacher.
taught her hypnosis, and we used to do trade readings sometimes and stuff, and now I work with her at Pine Grove and stuff like that,
And it was Jean that introduced me to Patty. And so but Jean really doesn't want to deal with cold cases.
Right.
So I was so glad to meet Patty. But when I did this research and I said to Jean, what do I do with this information? She said, don't do anything with this information. Don't call the detective in charge of this case, and don't even, do anything with it. Don't contact any family members. Just ask her. Go back into your meditation and ask her what she wants you to do with it. And she came through and she said, I don't want you to do anything with it. Just pray for me.
Wow.
And I have the feeling to this day that she came through because I was asking for help, and I was asking for a sign, and she was there to help me.
Nice.
And so I still pray for her.
Aw.
Yeah.
They let me involved in it for a short time, but I had taken mediumship class with Tony Stockwell and Lisa Williams in Vancouver. And a lot of the people that were in that class were mostly from like Oregon and Washington and the West Coast. And they had this phenomenal group that they did the cold cases, and the detectives and everything gave this woman this cold case. She sent out emails. We would do a meditation on it, get our thoughts, send it back, and she would take common information and relay it to them. And they say that they've done cases with it.
Wow.
So they allowed me to go as a guest, because I guess you're supposed to be in that area or whatever. And I so wish that we could do that on the East Coast. But the problem being is we haven't really found that many detectives that we can give the information to.
Yeah.
That one cold case, the woman, the lady in charge was fabulous. But most of the time you have a hard time getting people that would do it. But we're much slower on the East Coast than they are on the West Coast for accepting that. And even New Hampshire and Vermont and stuff like that, they're a little more open to it than we are down here.
Yeah.
So it's opening up. You've got the police have that, they had that deck of cards out that were cold cases, and now they found out they have so many more that it's like,
She's coming out with a second.
I don't know what she's doing with it. She hasn't figured out what she's doing.
It's a deck
like 400.
of like 52 cards with cold cases in Rhode Island that are featured on each card. And Patty uses them in her group to, and we work on these different cases that are still unsolved. So if she's coming out with a second
I don't know whether it's a second deck or it's going to be like a list or a book or something.
Oh.
Because she said they found out that we now have in Rhode Island over 400 cold cases. And the deck's 52.
Wow.
So she's supposed to be doing something with it, and I'm anxious to see what happens because it is, it's crazy the information that we get. And I get people that come to this group from everywhere and all different walks of life. And it's amazing that you'll have 3 or 4 that get the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
So you kind of know that that's, kind of feel like, I think
what
that's
are the odds that
so
many people are getting the same information?
Absolutely.
Sometimes we get names, sometimes we get dates, we get locations, and the information is sitting there. And really glad that you took that information that we got in that last class to the family members, because I would not have known what to do with that.
Well, actually, a family member was actually in the group, so it was very easy to get them the information because she was actually
was she
there.
a family member?
She wasn't a family member, but her cousins were family members.
Okay.
So she brought that in.
That's great.
So as I said, if people do have anything, just let us know. It's not like we charge. We don't do anything. We just try to see if we can find some closure or some answers, and we have a great time.
And we're putting this out to you detectives out there. If you want to come and visit with us sometime, we'd love to have you observe. Right, Patty?
Absolutely.
I mean, you wouldn't mind that.
I would never mind that at all. And do you know what I have too is I do have a gentleman that does have dogs that I use sometimes for the cadaver dogs. And the only problem we had is when we called them out, the water levels this year, we had so much rain, was so high, and the water that we needed checked was overflowing, so there was no embankment for them to see if they could get the smell of that kind of stuff. But I'm also wondering now if it would work, because some of the additional information we got the last one that we did.
Maybe we should
kinda
resume with that.
Yeah. Oh, I'll do that one. We'll touch on that one every day, because that one
that's an interesting case.
It is an interesting case.
So all cases are important to us, so no case is too small for any of you watching.
But one of the reasons that, we do cases that the body has been found, but the cases that I always feel that when the family can't bury their loved ones, that those cases bug me more than the other ones.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because they don't have it. So, and when Ann joined it, it upped the game quite a bit, because you are fabulous.
Oh, that's
and
nice
it upped
of
the
you
game.
to say.
Yeah, so
I really love doing it, and I hope that maybe this group can get some answers for people out there who are, just heartbroken.
Right. And like I said, I do think one of the cases, they just wanted to know why, and we came up with the why. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that gentleman came through very clear and explained everything. It was a very cool combination of mediumship.
Some of these things, you really can't believe it just by listening to a TV show. You have to actually be there to understand. But when the information comes through, sometimes it's crystal clear. And
if you've got people writing it down, and you've got a group of 8 people, and 4 people have got the same basic story, there's something to look into with that.
Right. It's not just coincidence.
Yeah.
No such
we're meditating and seeing what comes to us and writing it down. So, like I said, if you have 4 people that came into the same thing, there is something going on. But it's absolutely fabulous.
So it's a great class.
Yes. So you work at some of my shows that I do. Sometimes when I do the shows, depending on the size of them, I have to keep the ones that are regulars, but you're becoming a regular at the mine size. So,
I love it, and I'm happy to do these readings because there's something very special when you do a one-on-one with a person. And Patty is the one that actually got me into using cards. In the past, I didn't do so much with cards. I used to say, well, I'm going direct.
Yep.
But actually, the cards can be a very interesting form of dowsing for information.
Well, and one of the things with the cards is, first of all, I love them for more. I read people's energies more than the cards, but I look down on them, and if I haven't come up with something, I see something that I haven't come up with, I bring it up. But the cards are a distraction more for the client so that they don't get all bottled up and stuff. But I was laughing because she worked at one of my psychic dinners, and this girl came over to me and said, I should get another reading because the girl didn't use cards. And I turned around and said, no, we can only do one a piece. They only do so many readings, blah, blah, blah. And I'm explaining it to her. And then she didn't know I was standing behind her, and her uncle was going to go for a reader, and she said, you should go to her. She's really good. She doesn't even have to use cards. And I'm like, really, girlfriend? Really?
That's funny. That's a funny story.
That was so funny. So now I have her just flip a few cards, and I got her to flip a few cards so that way you don't have some people get anxious.
I found, for anybody interested, John Howland's cards, the Psychic Tarot set that he produced, is fabulous, and I've been using it.
Oh, nice.
And I just love it.
Do you want to have a funny story with the cards that I use for individuals?
Yeah.
I use a different deck for groups, and I have a lot of John Holland's because I love him. I've taken classes with him and stuff.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
He is. He's a really good man. But in there, I have this cards, and now I just, of course, forgot the name of it. Shadowscape is the name of the cards, and I don't, for the life of me, know how the artist found my home address, not the mind's eye address, and asked me to critique the cards about maybe 12 years ago.
Wow.
And it came to my house, and I critiqued the cards, so he mailed me a free deck of cards.
Oh, how nice.
And then, because I can't get anything for free, I'm just one of those people that just can't get anything for free, my grandkids splashed me with the cards in my pocketbook and soaked them, and so they all stuck together, so I had to run out and buy a deck. But I thought that was so sweet, and it was just the artistry on some of those cards. You got to see what you're drawn to.
Yes.
And when you're drawn to it and you're connected to it, that's where you need to go with it. And I used the original cards that everybody used at the beginning, and then I took a tarot class with a friend, a Tarot 1 class, and when I took the Tarot 1 class, beginner's class, I stopped being able to read because I was overthinking what I did naturally already. And the teacher turned around and said, get a different deck and you'll combine what you've learned in here and that.
Did it work?
And it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
And if anybody wants to get a hold of her, she is on Facebook, right? Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Yep. Ann Porto. Or you could get a hold of me if you want to get a hold of her. And as I said, I thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you too, Patty.
And
thank you for all your work, your good work.
I was doing Psychic Detective like once, twice a year, and now we do it at least every other month we meet. And I'm thankful to you for that because...
well, we need you.
And I've got so excited about it, and so has everybody else.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.